Hello all, time for another coffee with Kilroy, or what I sometimes call beverage in a book. My beverage, well, coffee. My book today is the West Point Atlas of War, the Civil War. And the chief editor of this was Brigadier General Vincent J. Esposito, and starting to cover maps and atlases a little bit more, and so this will go into that playlist. So if you want to check out what other maps, atlases, and the like that I've covered, take a look there. These are interesting atlases in that they are dedicated to specific periods of military history. This one is the Civil War, and as I've said on my other episodes of maps and atlases, one of my degrees is geography, so maps have always held a special place for me in looking at them and understanding them and trying to figure out what they convey or what's the best way to convey information through a map. And so these military maps have always been interesting to me in connection with wargaming. So I tend to look at atlases and maps either before, during, or even after playing war games. And a lot of our war games are basically just maps, right? They're a map with a grid on it or a hex grid on it, and conveying the different features and terrain that affect that battle. So to me, there's a direct correlation between looking at these maps and looking at the war game maps and trying to understand what is going on. So with this, I'll do a quick page through of this. I probably won't do every single page, and have some coffee. So you can take this time to have some coffee as well, or whatever you're drinking. I tend to post these in the morning at my coffee time, but that might not be your coffee time. So whenever you're picking this up, I hope you are enjoying your morning, noon, or night. So West Point Atlas, the Civil War, as you can see, you got the back here, talks a little bit about it. Says originally published in 1959 as part of a 2-volume set, the West Point Atlas of the Civil War provides a unique way of studying military history. From the first Bull Run campaign to Sherman's March to the Sea, detail maps delineate the course of many conflicts that defined the Civil War. They also create a fascinating visual tribute to the ingenuity of troop movements by detailing the progress of forces from day to day and sometimes hour to hour. The accompanying text provides insight into the many twists and turns of the war, as well as the motivation of the leaders directing the troops who carried them out. I mean, what more do you want from a military book, right? Also, one thing that notes here is it covers in campaigns. This is kind of set up in campaign format, so it will cover the major campaigns of the war and then break out some of the battles in underneath those campaigns. So a little bit different than some of the other atlases I've covered, where they do a little bit of that, but they really focus more into battles and some of the movements in battles. This one takes kind of the campaign approach and kind of drills down deeper as you go on. There are your keys. There's your terrain key or your basic symbols, and that's going to be used in their atlases. And I have I have at least one other West Point Atlas that I'll cover at a later date, so be on the lookout for that. So I'll have the same symbols, I would imagine. Here's your content, so it shows you how this is broken out by the campaigns. And then you have a chronology here at the end for 62 and 63. That's kind of interesting. And here are the major campaigns shown here. And you get the first, and I'll probably stick with what's on top, otherwise flipping back and forth. But usually on the top page, it's all done in landscape format, and the top is the text. So here's the first Bull Run campaign 1, and they'll give an introduction and context to that, which is very interesting. I generally like those. They're not in depth, but they go well with what's going on in the map, so to give you some context. Having the landscape format is great for reading the maps, because get a better view of it, or a larger view of it. The problem is it's hard reading that text in the landscape format. These books, I have a fear that the more I read this, the spine's is gonna crack. So, but here's an example. You're gonna have blue and red for the different forces, and showing locations, but you also get a very good sense of the terrain and road networks and the like on these maps. Here's First Bull Run Campaign 2. Again, there's always going to be more text up here. I'm really just kind of flipping through and showing you some of the maps here. Campaign 3. So they're basically showing elements of the battle at different time periods here. So you see how it progresses. 4, so a lot on Bull Run. Then we have Henry and Donaldson campaign. These are Fort Henry and Fort Donaldson. This was the Grant effort. There's Grant with his forces right here. This was a key to later on taking Vicksburg. A little bit more on that. And then here is actually Henry and Donaldson. Here they are at the Cumberland River here. And here's Fort Donaldson right there in the middle. You can see some of the defense works there as well. Sorry, let's get a little bit better. So gotta pop that up there. Then we get into the Shiloh campaign. This is where some of the forces were at in the early morning. And then, of course, there was kind of a unexpected attack with the Confederate forces actually pushing the the Grant's forces all the way back almost to the river there. Then there was the next day there was fighting back. Here's the Peninsular campaign. This was McClellan's masterpiece. Got more of those. Then this is Peninsula Campaign 4, so it's got it on the side. So they decided to do this inset for these. A little interesting there. Then Jackson's Valley Campaign. Several of these showing how this progressed. This was a very interesting campaign. A lot of smaller battles in this one. Here's Second Bull Run. Seeing how it develops there. You have Lee with his standard setup of Jackson and Longstreet. Of course, after Vicksburg, that will not be the case. Here's Antietam. And they did some inset. They had more panels of this, but they shortened this, made them a little bit smaller and to show a little bit more of how the battle developed there. There's Burnside, and there's Burnside Bridge down here. What's now named as Burnside Bridge. Fredericksburg. And there's quite a bit of detail on here. You see where the forces, who are the leaders, sometimes overall strength. But then you also have the time element to know, how it, to see how it progressed. Here's Stones Rivers or Murfreesboro. Been to that battlefield. Several on that. Here's Chancellorsville. This is the famous road to where they kind of surrounded the Union forces here. Still had some Union forces in Fredericksburg, but the daring move was the flanking maneuver by Stonewall Jackson, where he in the course of that, was fatally wounded. So here's the flanking move to move it around to their back pretty much at that point. So you can see they're engulfed there, circled. Then the fighting took place on this side after there was more of a hooker retreat here. Here's Gettysburg. We've all seen several of these, right? Now it develops over time. Here's July 1st, and July 1st at 2 p.m. So they're starting to surround Gettysburg, and they're going to push them through the town, and then that's when the North will take the high ground or the fish hook. Here is this is on July 2nd, so here they've got the fish hook. This is when they're starting to set up around the fish hook, and now they have it. So the main point here is Culp's Hill over here. And then, of course, along this side, we have the, Devil's Den and Big and Little Round Top. And then eventually on day 3, Pickett's Charge. So this is the long street. This is after dark on the 2nd, and this is the 3rd. So this will be the Pickett's Charge right here, as you can see, with all the arrows going right to that spot. Look at that there. And this is kind of the Lee's retreat. Vicksburg campaign. And this truly was Grant's masterpiece. I was being a little facetious about McClellan earlier. So it was the battle, and then the battle, around Jackson, and then Champion Hill, and then of course the siege of the city. Chickamauga. Battles around Chattanooga. The Chickamauga and Chattanooga are kind of connected in that regard. The Wilderness Campaign. I need to give me some coffee here. Situation on May 3rd here. And then you can see how forces start to develop. And some heavily, the Wilderness Campaign is aptly titled in that there's a lot of fighting in some heavy wooded areas. This, and along with Shiloh, might be some of the more thick wooded fighting that went on during the war. See some more Wilderness Campaign here. Then Spotsylvania. As you can see, they just have several panels, so they kind of show how it develops over time. Then this is Wilderness to Cold Harbor. Battle of North Anna, Battle of Cold Harbor. This was a very bloody affair here. Movement to the James River. Here's the Siege of Petersburg, or the Crater is what it's sometimes called. Definitely something to read up on if you're interested in different aspects of the Civil War and some of the. That was just a brutal effort of what took place there. Here's Grant's pursuit of Lee. The Atlanta campaign. Franklin and Nashville campaign. And then here is some timelines here. And I've done some timeline books, and I might do some more as I get as on Coffee with Kilroy. I like to do timeline books. So I think that's it. So there we have it. that is a quick page through of the West Point Atlas of the Civil War. Thought I'd share that with you today on Coffee with Kilroy. Love to know your thoughts on it. Do you use these atlases, or do you use outside references when you're playing your war games, or when you're reading history? Sometimes I use this as, if I'm reading an aspect of history, if I have the space, I'll lay one of these out as I'm reading, and I can I'm very visual, so I like seeing how it plays out along with the text. Now, sometimes there's maps in some of the books, but sometimes I like seeing a little bit different perspective. That's, again, if you look at my banner picture, that's what I'm all about, different perspectives. So anyway, that's what I have for you today. Thank you so much for stopping by. I'd love to know your thoughts on any of this stuff. Anyway, have a good one. Take care. Thanks for watching.